Today, we're gonna go over the 10 new cards that will be added to the game at the end of February. Several creators got a card to reveal, including me, which I'll be showing as the final card of this video. I didn't originally get a card to reveal, but the Heart of the Huntress Open winner Ian gave it to me. So huge shout out to Ian. And to just jump right in, the very first card we're going to be looking at is the Blade Bound Berserker. And this reveal or review is going to be very interesting because I already played with these cards, some of them at least, at the Riot Mystery event. And the Blade-Bound Berserker is a card that I used to win the Invitational. The decks I played at the Invitational were Rumble Draven, TF Nila, which had no new cards, and then my final deck was Galio Udyr with the Blade-Bound Berserker because the Blade-Bound Berserker copies Udyr's stances. 4 mana 3/4, when you play a slow spell that targets a single ally, copy it onto me from Freljord. My thought with this was, if I just do it for the Udyr stances, it's probably not going to be good enough. It's good, but a little bit inconsistent and like a weird combo piece. But if you're playing with Galio, you can use Magical Feathering to give both another ally and the Berserker +2 health while adding 2 of the suppressions to your opponent's hand. I thought that was really cute. Ultimately, the deck was good. I don't think I built it in the right way, but, you know, I ended up winning the Invitational, so how bad was it really? I think this card is super cool and definitely a card that Udyr decks will play forever because it's not just about getting some extra stats on this 3/4. It's also about leveling Udyr even faster because you get 2 stances and Udyr needs 3 to level. But Udyr's level 2 also gets +1/+1 for every stance. So the Blade-Bound Berserker just goes galactic, and I actually won a game in the Invitational because of this. I only played 2 stances in that entire game with the Blade-Bound Berserker on board, and that was enough to level Udyr and give him an extra +1/+1. So I think this card is pretty great, but we'll have to figure out what the correct way is to actually build that Udyr deck. Big fan, love this card, I think it's quite good. And this card was revealed by Jerzino. I will have all the links to their Twitter accounts in the comments below. And the next card is going to be the Prototype Porobot revealed by Puffball Panda. That's a lot of P's. So this is a 2 mana 1/1 elusive Attune Poro from Piltover that says last breath, grant a random 6+ cost spell in hand. When unplayed, summon a Prototype Porobot. Now this is really funny because in the Invitational I played against Puffball Panda and I missed lethal at one point because I could have open attacked for a lethal swing. I mean, obviously Puffball Panda could have had an answer, which is why I developed. And then Puffball Panda's Lux Jace deck played the assembly line, summoning 2 3/3s plus the Prototype Porobot that she had die earlier. So instantly she had 3 blockers for 1 spell, and I lost the game because of that. So I think this card is pretty good. It's not really a card you put in a Poro deck, especially because the Aurora Borealis already got nerfed, well, buffed to 5 mana, but it doesn't work anymore with the Protobot because it needs a 6-cost spell. Really, really, really cool card to just kind of get like infinite blockers in a way as long as you have those 6-cost spells in hand. And getting a blocker when you're kind of taking like a slow tempo play because it is an expensive spell, I think is really, really cool. It's just all around really, really solid, but getting it to die might sometimes be awkward because you need to block with it first, and you know that your opponent isn't going to block into a 1/1 elusive. So there is some awkwardness. It's only a 1/1, but just getting that attune and the extra blocker is going to be pretty good in the late game, I think. And next up, we have a 0 mana Targon card, Chaincaster, revealed by Boulevard. This is a 0 mana 3/2 that says play Curse Me with Shackles. So this is the first 0 mana unit after all of them got rotated. During the last rotation, we had the Pesky Spectre, Jack Butcher, and the barrel, the 0/1 ephemeral barrel that deals 1 as last breath effect. They all got rotated, but here we are with a 0 mana 3/2 back in the game. I'm not sure why. I think this is good for Ransom Riches because that was a card that would just not be playable if you had 0 mana, but now you can get a unit, which the fact that the Chaincaster shackles itself, so you still need to kind of pay 2 mana afterwards, is probably why they did that. Like, if you cheat it into play for 0 mana, then you won't get the shackles because it's a play effect and not a summon effect. But if you generate a card that is 0 mana, then it will still have to come from your hand and it will shackle itself. The synergy and what makes this card powerful and unique is when you play it with a Sunken Temple, because you can updraft the curse so you don't have to pay for it. But it's also good for Nightfall, because if you use this in Nightfall, you have a 0 mana activation and then you have 2 mana shackles to activate Nightfall again if you want to. In the Invitational, Boulevard was actually playing this card, and I played against him. And it was really interesting to see this card being used with Aphelios. On turn 3, I didn't really know what was going to happen. Boulevard had like 3 mana, no spell mana. Passed, I attacked with like a challenger or something, I don't remember exactly. Then played the Chaincaster for 0 into Aphelios to get the weapon. And that was a really sick play. I thought that was really clever, and honestly, it was a huge tempo swing for him too. So I think this card is very good, just because it's a 0 mana card. You just can't sleep on 0 mana cards. Where it will actually be used, I have no idea though. And then up next, we have the Prancing Sea Spirits, revealed by Rolly Attack. This is a 2 mana card from Ionia. Elusive, 1/1, play, summon an exact ephemeral copy of me. I'll just say this right now, because I have the insider knowledge. This was by far the most played card in the tournament. There are several synergy points with this card. It is good for ephemeral decks like Zed and Gwen, because you get that ephemeral elusive attacker, so you can get back your sharks. It is a card that summons 2 units for the cost of, well, 2 units for the cost of 1, basically, like House Spider. But most importantly, this card is fantastic with hand buffs. If you play an Omen Hawk, a Yadulski Snowdog, a Glacial Saurian, it doesn't matter. Any of those cards, and you draw this as a 2/2, or God forbid, a 3/3 or better, you basically double the value because you get 2 of those stat buffs, and they're elusive. So the reason this was played a lot in the tournament was because this card slotted right into the existing Zed Freljord deck. I think it's Zed Nar, I believe. It's just like a deck that runs a bunch of elusives, plus the Omen Hawk, Yadulski Snowdog, like I just said. And then sometimes in the late game, they play a Prancing Sea Spirits, and they're like 6/6s or 5/5s or something, right? And it's just a finisher. It's just 2 5/5s that are attacking you as elusives and win the game. This card is really, really good, and was by far the best card during the Invitational. I'm saying that even though I'm the one that won with the Blade-Bound Berserker. But if I'm going to be honest, I still think the Prancing Sea Spirits is better. I just, I'm not much of an elusive guy. I play elusive blockers sometimes, but not actual elusives. And this is elusives that get stat buffs, and that's the worst kind of elusive. So that wasn't me. However, a lot of people did bring them. I'm not gonna name and shame them, but the deck did really well for them. I know that much. Very, very, very good card, and we're gonna see a lot of this one. Next up, we have Ariston the Disgraced, revealed by Grappler. This is an 8 mana dragon from Shadow Isle, 8/4. When I'm summoned, grant me Deathless. Attack, give enemies -1/-0 this round. The interesting part about this card is that first line of text that says, when I'm summoned, grant me Deathless. So if you have a Mordekaiser on the field, or you use Mordekaiser effect on this card, you get 2 copies, because every time it's summoned, it just gives Deathless to itself again. So it's infinite, and it is very printable with cards like Mordekaiser and Chronicler of Ruin and anything that gives you additional copies of this. You can even print this with something as simple as like the Splinter Soul, which gives a 1/1 ephemeral copy of something. It's there forever. It's an 8 mana card though, so I think it's quite slow, but just the fact that this card is on the board forever is quite good. I'm gonna say right now though, you're going to want to stick around until the end, because the card that I'm revealing, the card that I got to reveal, shout out to Ian again for giving me the card, hard counters this. So wait until the end. Okay, so it always has Deathless, and funny story, Vriss, one of the designers, was talking about this card a little bit, and apparently they were talking about nerfing this card multiple times. There was somebody that kept wanting to nerf this card. Multiple people apparently, but ended up not happening. Apparently the give enemies -1/-0 was a line of text that they didn't think was necessary. I think that's like the actual payoff. Like, sure, it's cool to have a minion that's just there forever, but if it doesn't do anything beside that, what is the point of playing it unless you already have other cards that can print it? But that -1/-0 actually makes it so that your fearsomes could potentially win the game if you get multiple attacks. And printing Ariston, giving the board -1/-0 multiple times, so it's like a -3, that will actually help your fearsomes close out the game. And that is probably the most powerful aspect of this card. One more funny story. This card, internally, I'm giving away so many dev stories, but they used to call this card, while it was being developed, called Ariston the Stinky Dragon. That was just the name they had for this card while they were designing it. Stinky Dragon. So Ariston will forever be known as the Stinky Dragon. Much more catchy, if you ask me. Okay. Up next, we have a Demacia card, revealed by, who else? Marshall from the LOR report, resident Demacia lover, and it's a 5-mana slow spell, Talent Strike. Grant all birds everywhere +1/+1, and allied bird strikes an enemy. Is this card good? It's pretty comparable to Siren Song, where you're giving a specific type of card +1/+1. With Siren Song, it was for 4 mana, you gave all your 1-drops +1/+1. This gives all birds +1/+1, and there is a strike. Now, I will have to say that 1-drops can be pretty flexible. There are a lot of good 1-drops in the game that love a little stat boost, like the Fizz, like Divine Clerk, among others that I can't think of right now. There are good 1-drops. But there aren't that many flexible birds. Birds kind of all do the same thing. They're all relatively cheap. They have very low health, but they have okay attack, like 2 or 3 attack most of the time, with Challenger to take something out. That's why the Ionia bird, the 5-mana Ionia bird, is powerful in that archetype, because it gives birds quick attack. Usually birds go in, take something down, and then they also die themselves. But, you know, with quick attack, they actually get to kill something without dying. Talent Strike does kind of help with that, even though I think quick attack is better, which we've seen from the Harp being put on stuff like Valor. But the problem is there isn't really a mid-range bird, like a 3 or 4 mana bird that has good stats that can actually use this strike. I think that's the main problem. All birds that you play in the early game are like 2/1s. Ideally, you probably want to play like a Fleet Feather Tracker and then use Talent Strike for 5 mana. At slow speed, though, I still don't think it's good. It's very counterable. I think it's a cool archetype, and if I were to play it, it would probably be like a Shen Nico deck, or even just a Shen Demacia deck with all the birds. Oh, you can't play Shen Nico, because then you can't play this card. That's Ionia Nico regions. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where to use this. Funnily enough, I think Marshall also asked the devs if this could be fast speed, and they said, yeah, probably. But they didn't like the fact that you could give stuff +1/+1 at fast speed, because that would create some awkward scenarios where you're just like buffing up your entire board of birds when they're trying to board clear or something, and that's why it's slow. I do think that this card would be fine at fast speed, though. Birds, I don't see the archetype really happening, so I'll be cooking with it. I just don't think it's very good. It also wasn't seen a single time at the Invitational. Next up, we have Toss, who got to reveal Sneaky Swap, a 3-mana fast spell from Bandle City. Recall an ally to summon a hungry Owlcat in its place. I love these type of effects. Now, I don't know what to say about recall cards, especially if they're in Bandle City, because the only recall decks that have in place are Ionia. But the cool thing about this, right, and the thing that will make you feel really clever when you play this card, is using it to keep an ally safe. Like, let's say you're attacking with Ahri, your opponent fires a Mystic Shot at Ahri, and then you play Sneaky Swap, and there is an Owlcat in its place with Spell Shield. So the Owlcat just eats the Spell Shield, or eats the Mystic Shot, and gets the attack through anyway. I think that's a really clever thing, and it plays quite nicely in game. Didn't see this card a single time though in the Invitational, because yeah, it's hard to slot a card like this in a deck. And to be honest, in the Invitational, because it is a tournament and we only got like about 2 hours to prepare with any of these new cards, it's like, yeah, you just kind of gotta take the cards that already fit into existing archetypes that are powerful, like the Prancing Sea Spirits being very good in Zednar. So that's kind of why I think a lot of these cards didn't actually see any play, including Sneaky Swap. I'll be excited to try out an Ahri Cannon Ionia Bandle City deck. That is something I played in the past with Pranks, Recall Your Otterpuss, and Sneaky Swap goes greatly into that deck. So I'll be trying it out, but do I think it's good? No, I don't think it's enough to make those type of decks playable. One thing that needs to be said, though, is it's in Bandle City, so you can find it from Conch, and that is potentially disgusting in a lot of different decks. So that's probably the most powerful thing about this card, it existing in a deck or region that generates a lot of cards. So you will have to be careful of this one. Up next, we have Kashuri Strike, revealed by Card Gamer. This is a 3-mana slow spell from Noxus. Kill a unit if it's damaged. Kill a unit if it's damaged, otherwise deal 2 to it instead. This is a card that tries to tie together that awkwardness of where you have a Disintegrate, but nothing to activate it to kill the unit, or if you have a Flock and you have nothing to actually damage the unit to activate your Flock. This is that middle ground. It's like, oh, you know, your unit is damaged, so I can kill it. Oh, your unit isn't damaged yet? I can deal 2 to it to activate my Scorched Earth or my Flock. It has Broadmane in the art, so I hate this card. It's literally just Broadmane. I think it is good that this card exists because it removes that awkwardness, it kind of glues that concept together, but it's not a deck I would ever play. Do I think it's good enough to be played? Yes. I think this will actually be a 1 or 2 of in Bandle City Noxus decks. I think that is exactly where this goes, and if rotation doesn't get rid of Broadmane, then I'll rage my pitchforks and make sure that he gets rotated anyway, because I hate that archetype. Good card for exactly that, though. One of the most exciting cards, very interesting, revealed by ABG Thai Guy, 5 mana 3/4 from Bilgewater, Chakram Dancer. I hope I pronounced that right. Play, deal 1 to anything. Your skills drain. I love how clean this text looks. It's just like, it's 2 lines of text, and both of them are extremely simple, but the implications for what this card could do and mean are ginormous. This card might say Bilgewater, but let's not fool anyone. This is just straight up a Jhin card. Bilgewater decks that have skills generally do not care about your skills draining or dealing 1 damage for 5 mana. Right? You have to look at champions because all the followers that have skills are already available for Jhin. So there is Misfortune, deals 1 to everything that blocks and the Nexus. We have Twisted Fate's red card, could also heal a bunch if there is a board full unit. There's Gangplank, who attacks on his level 2, explodes the entire board. That's gonna be a big heal. That's basically Reno Jackson. That's basically, we're gonna be rich. But do these cards and decks care about skills draining? No, they're aggressive. There was a Gangplank Shadow Owl deck back in the day. It was like called Keck Control, which just had like, you know, all the barrels, and then you would use Valve Feast to drain for 2 instead. And there, yeah, it'd be pretty good. Actually, it doesn't even work with Valve Feast, right? It's skills only. So yeah, I still don't think it's very good. I just don't think it does anything. If we then look at Jhin, the cards that Jhin plays that have skills, and the big one here is obviously Riptide Rex. Riptide Rex also just heals you to full because the skill deals like 14 damage if it hits all units. Starts dealing 1 to the Nexus if it misses a unit. That's a huge heal. But once you're at the point where you can play Riptide Rex, do you really need your skills to drain to stay in a game? Most of the time, when you do that, you've already won. So do you care about healing? Yeah, I don't really see it. Maybe if Twisted Fate ever comes back, the one deck that I could see this working in is probably the Twisted Fate Katarina Annie deck, right? Like with Annie, this might be pretty good, but again, that's aggro most of the time, not in the Ravenbloom decks. In the Ravenbloom decks, maybe you run this as like a one-of, because sometimes you play this when you need a heal and you go back to full. Something like that. I think it's a really, really interesting card. I just wonder how much your skills draining actually matters, because these archetypes are generally pretty aggressive. And because it's limited to skills and not spells, there's not really that much you can do from it, because you need to work to get your skills to activate. Still, yeah, I like this card exist. I just don't see it. I don't see an archetype for it right now, but maybe in the future, maybe when we get more control-y skill decks. And then the final card that I'm about to reveal is one that was given to me by Ian. I'm going to try to pronounce your name. Ian Noguera gave this card to me because I don't know. I'm a content creator. I have a Twitter and a big YouTube, I guess, bigger YouTube. So I really appreciated, Ian, that I got to reveal this card. Make sure to check out his Twitter below in the description. And the card that I have for you today is from the final region that we haven't seen yet, Shurima. 6 mana, dragon. It's in the Elder Dragon region. Horned Swarmcaller with Fury. Play, grant 2 enemies -1/-0 and disable their positive keyword. And it is a 6/6. So when I said that this card hard counters Deathless, I meant that. Because this isn't just your quicksand. This is a permanent quicksand. You can give this to the Deathless that is given from Legion of the Severed. You can stop Mordekai's from printing. But where I think this card will be the best is against Formidables. You just completely disable a formidable unit, 2 formidable units, permanently. It's literally, yeah, you just have 2 bricks on the field now if you play this card. I think this card is very playable, mostly in Elder Dragon decks, but also maybe in like Akshan decks, because even though Akshan is rotating, so I don't really know about that. But if you play this as like a tech choice to not lose to Pantheon, Formidable, whatever decks, you can kind of buff this up. It has Fury, you can give it keywords, it will actually kind of become a game ender. It's a really, really versatile tool that can stabilize the board for you. It is a play effect with no skill, so it goes through Spell Shield, it disables Spell Shield too, and at that point, it has Fury, so it can grow bigger too. I'm really glad that this dragon actually did get Fury, because I know some of the other ones didn't. I would play this card in my decks, is what I'm trying to say. It didn't see any play in the Invitational because there isn't really a deck that this slots into, and also Elder Dragon had just gotten nerfed and none of the people there actually played Runeterra because we got there right after the patch. So I'm excited about this card. I hope Shurima gets some more love, and this card as a general powerful tool. Not quite as powerful as the Fire Spitter though, but just something you can slot into most decks, I think will help the region a lot. So those are all the cards. Again, I'm gonna have all the links to the socials from the creators below because they got to reveal this card. That's why this video is also a little bit later, because I didn't want to take away their moment to reveal a cool card. I'm here 24 hours later after the NDA is lifted. So let me know what you guys think about these cards, which one you're the most excited about. It's a little bit different of a video because I'm recording this offline instead of how I usually do it on stream with a little Twitch chat over here, just going crazy talking about the cards. But just let me know which one you're going to be experimenting first, and I'll see you in the next video. Happy high rolling.
Thinking outside the box, Zillion Victor, time bomb printer, 1, 2, meta shifter, not a quitter, fighting for LP.